Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Hardware Podcast. I'm Jackson Danner along with my good friend Omar Porha. Newly graduated and off to the summer. Sadly, not too much more football to talk about, at least at the college level. But hey, we're coming after a little break there. We're coming off of the FCS championship and the awards the night before, and we got a lot to get to.
Absolutely, yeah, and don't sleep on the spring league, Jackson. We still got the spring league, and
Very true. I'm yet to watch it. I'm excited to do that this weekend.
yeah, I'm going to game next week. I'm pretty excited, and we also have the indoor football league and a bunch of arena leagues. I know the indoor football league has a national TV contract, and I'm throwing a barbecue with a few friends for the IFL game of the week. So call me a
Nice.
degenerate, but no surprise here that I'm doing that.
Yeah, hey, football is football. As I think we've talked about this commercial before on the pod, where it's like, does it matter who's playing? I know it doesn't. It's football is football.
Yeah.
So watch that, and we got a little OTA action as well at the pro level. But yeah. So what are we've so far removed? You want to get started with the Walter Payton Award first?
Yeah, of course. But before we do, I want to congratulate you, Jackson, for graduating as well. I mean, shoot, being so humble, man, not mentioning you graduating too.
I didn't graduate, so
Oh man, you know
yeah.
what? I am embarrassed. We're gonna have
Oh,
to edit
you're
that
good,
out.
man. I took a little, I'm squeezing a 4-year degree into 5 years, unlike
All
yourself.
right,
So
we'll edit that out. We'll
you're
edit
off.
this out.
Yeah.
But
It's all good. Now, my girlfriend graduated. So,
yeah.
so
So we'll congratulate Izzy, Jackson's
yeah.
girlfriend.
Congrats to Izzy for graduating Baylor. And I'm still working on that TTU degree. So, hey, almost there. But let's see. So obviously Cole Kelly won, Southeastern Louisiana quarterback. Um, it's hard to make a case, or it's hard to make a case for why he shouldn't have won it. Barrier, Chestnut, you think they got ripped off, or do you think it went to who it should have gone to?
So I'm not surprised by how close the race was because looking at the voting, the gap between Barrier and Kelly was 6 points. Um, and it's close because they spread out the voting between a lot of players, of course, with these awards. Uh, on the contrary to the Heisman, where you just fill up 5 spots on a ballot, or actually they fill up 3 spots, but there's 20 candidates that get votes, but only a 6 point margin, and I don't honestly, I'm not that surprised by that really because on one hand, you have Barrier on the West Coast, and we've talked about this before. The Big Skies games, Eastern Washington's games are on Pluto TV, which is more accessible than ESPN Plus, cheaper, but football fans aren't going to flock to Pluto TV just to watch Eastern Washington play. And it's not even like their games are like Big Sky After Dark games. And then on the other hand, you have a guy like Cole Kelly who was kind of counted off early on by us for sure, and by other writers probably as well, with Sam Houston doing so well in the Southland, Nicholls State doing good as well, and of course Incarnate Word. So I'm not surprised at how close it was. I would have loved to see Julius Chestnut get more votes, being an old fashioned running back guy, but maybe that bodes well for next year. Disrespect for running backs.
Yeah, I wasn't surprised. I wish I couldn't say this, but I wasn't surprised that Chestnut didn't win it. And Barrier, all of them were deserving. But it's tough to see a running back win it. Julius, he did it. He had a phenomenal season, but it wasn't clear cut above like you saw with Devontae Smith when he won the Heisman this past year. It wasn't like clear cut, like historic, like you need for a non-quarterback to win that award. So yeah, it's I'm not surprised to see Chestnut not win it. I don't think either of us really thought he would. And Barrier being out of the playoffs, I'm curious how that hurt him possibly, at least after the first bit there. So yeah, I mean Cole Kelly is deserving, and so were all these guys. I mean, they all had great seasons. So I forget, was Barrier, did he get knocked off in the first round?
Yeah, it
Oh,
was the first round. They blew a lead against North Dakota State, and I think with how close the race was, I think if Eastern Washington beats North Dakota State, I think the award is Barriers with it only being a
yeah,
6 point
yeah,
margin.
because that's right. They did blow that lead. I couldn't remember if they were out in the first round or out of it completely. But yeah, If they win that, I think it's because the voting goes up to, what's the cutoff point again?
It was after the first round, which is why
Okay.
Chestnut got
Yeah.
a lot
And
of
then when
votes.
you beat the defending champions, that certainly helps your case. So yeah, that might have won it for Barrier. But uh yeah, but Cole Kelly, not many negative things you can say about it. Big dude too, like a strong, hard to take down. So, and Chestnut from Sacred Heart, of course, we've talked about him. Had a great year. He also went out in the first round. That although a great performance, no fault of his own. I think it was like just short of 150 and a touchdown in that playoff loss. But yeah, congrats to Cole Kelly and congrats to Southeastern Louisiana for getting Offensive Player of the Year.
I want to ask you this, Jackson, since you're a big draft guy. For Cole Kelly, do you see him being a late round guy, or do you see him like having a career trajectory kind of like a Paxton Lynch, like a big quarterback with mobility that can't really stick? I mean, I think he has the size and everything, but I'm not much of an NFL draft analyst.
I think I would have liked to seen a little bit more mobility from Cole Kelly. I think he's possibly like a coveted UDFA, in my opinion. Maybe sneaks into the late rounds, and it's just it's weird. Like even with Trey Lance being the third overall pick of the draft, you don't see that many lower level, FCS level D2 guys go and on the third day. Even a lot of times, I mean, even like Felipe Franks this past year didn't get drafted, and he went to a couple higher level programs in the Power Five. So it's, I don't know why. Like maybe NDSU bias is higher up there, but yeah, I think he gets signed somewhere for sure. It's just when you have a guy that's like that maybe didn't have to make the best reads, all that. It's tough without the mobility to get him in there. But we'll see. I mean, obviously, I'm pulling for him, and hopefully he plays well this fall. Yeah, I would like to see him sneak in there. That'd be great.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point you bring up with like FCS quarterbacks, because when I think of, for me, my extent of draft coverage goes to the All-Star games, because I'm a purist, I'm a traditionalist, love my East-West Shrine game. I know you're a Senior Bowl guy,
I
but
love the Shrine game though. What they
yeah,
do there in St. Pete and with St. Jude's is awesome. They good job on to the East West Shrine game, and that's been longer running, right? It's the longest run All Star game, if I remember right.
yeah, at the moment since 25. But with the Shrine game, at least something I've noticed is your FCS quarterbacks. At least lately, I mean, look at 2019. You had two Ivy League guys at the FCS. Like, if they're coming from the FCS, you're coming from like I feel like a name brand program. Like you had Kevin Davidson out of Princeton, and then Kurt Rollins was invited, did not play, but having seen Kurt Rollins twice in person, knowing that guy was, I mean, played for Yale. It helped that he played for Yale. He had all that tradition behind him. I think it is kind of hard, and I would agree that. I mean, it will be tough for Cole Kelly to get in lower. I guess be a third day pick, but he has an extra year of eligibility too, as does everyone. So, and now he's on the radar. He's on the national radar for sure. So I think this spring season can sort of catapult him into being that day 3 pick.
I couldn't remember quite, so I just looked it up. And obviously, with Trey Lance getting drafted third overall, if you include Notre Dame, no one else outside of the top five or the Power Five was drafted. It was just Power Five guys and Notre Dame, obviously with Ian Book. So it's kind of tough to justify or at least make an argument that, yeah, these guys are getting fairly looked at, but we'll see. Malik Willis, obviously, is a guy for next year that we've already talked a little bit about in the draft next year, and the mobility is insane there, and not a bad thrower too. So yeah, I'll be excited to see those guys next year.
Yeah, before we segue, yeah, I think it's great you brought up Malik Willis. I saw a mock draft of him at number 10, and it just shows leagues changing, and that's
Oh,
just
oh
amazing.
yeah, it definitely is.
even though he did transfer to avoid competing with 2022 Heisman Trophy candidate and potential winner Bo Nix. Just kidding. No Bo Nix hate on this podcast, but I did think that was a curious quote.
Yeah, definitely. For sure. So, kind of moving on to the Buck Buchanan Award. What do you think of Jordan Lewis with it?
I liked it. I liked him winning it because the dominance was there. And I know we talked about the small sample size, but he had a full season's worth of stats and he was dominant in those games. So I felt it was justified. And again, another close race with Colby Campbell. We thought all three of those guys were worthy too in our last pod. I think the margin of this race was only 5 points, and it was an even closer spread as Jordan Lewis only had 89 points in voting. Compared to Cole Kelly winning the Walter Payton with 137 points. It was evenly spread out, a lot of defensive standouts. So I like Lewis, and that you couldn't go wrong with any of the three, with Stone Snyder, Colby Campbell, or Jordan Lewis. I mean, they all had their moments.
For sure. And being the first SWAC player to win it too is awesome for Jordan Lewis. And I mean, for next season, he's nearing that SWAC sack record. He's getting close to it. I forget what the exact numbers are, but it's certainly something that he can break. He just needs a couple games like the like the 4 sack that he had in the season opener.
Yeah, and I think an interesting trend to follow with Jordan Lewis and just the whole SWAC in general. Maybe not so much the MEAC. I would say HBCU football like on a whole. It's just like the growing exposure and the recognition of the high level of play in the SWAC, particularly. Like we saw the early season TV releases yesterday, and who got a national TV slot on Sunday afternoon? The Orange Blossom Classic with Florida A&M and Jackson State. So it appears to not just be a spring phenomenon. It appears to be a fall thing too. And this is a little bit off topic since Jordan Lewis plays for neither Florida A&M or Jackson State. But I just think it's great to see this trend. And next year with a full season, I'd love to see guys like Aquil Glass getting more recognition in the Walter Payton race too, and just seeing what they can do. Because I mean, again, with Cole Kelly, like with Cole Kelly, this spring season was catapult into better recognition and better pro scouting.
Something else to mention, going back to like the scouting perspective and looking at Jordan Lewis from an NFL level, he's a state champion hurdler, and his main knock is being undersized. You know who else is considered undersized? Aaron Donald. Like it's tough with the elite get off. I'm sure he has with being doing hurdling. I'm sure he'll get looked at coming probably a day 3 pick UDFA at least. So that'll be awesome to look at.
Yeah, like you mentioned him being a hurdler, Jackson. I gotta say, I did multiple double takes at the roster for Southern, and looking at Jordan Lewis, he's under 200 pounds. He's a defensive end like that.
Yeah,
I
you
can't.
don't see that too often.
Yeah.
But it was efficient. It worked, right? And it did well. He was the defensive player of the year. And he had some pretty good competition there too. So that's awesome for him. So.
I mean, are we sure he's not a linebacker? Like, that's the thing, because like I didn't watch too much Southern football, but it's like, are we sure he's not like an outside linebacker in a 3-4 scheme? Like that's the thing that just gets me. It's like a mental block.
You could do it. I think if he does go pro and does go to the pro level, I think he'll be like an edge rusher / like 3-4 outside linebacker type of guy.
Yeah, but geez, under 200, that's amazing. There's got to be a film about him. Like we gotta start the GoFundMe for the film.
Speed. Can't you even kind of picture him as like a safety almost? Like
yeah, exactly. Like Jamal Adams. I mean, yeah, like he could be part of that vaunted
Jamal. I like that comparison.
Yeah, he could be part of that vaunted Seahawks pass rush with Jamal Adams, the best D tackle, the best D lineman in the game.
Yeah. That would be cool. I would like to see that. Maybe we'll see Southern do that as he's nearing the draft next year. Let's go into this championship game, because what an exciting ending on ABC. I tried to go. Tickets were running at about $350, something crazy like that. So, it was a packed crowd there, even in the rain. They were staying faithful there in Frisco, and not that far away. It was only a couple hours from Sam Houston State's campus. Um, something that I was completely wrong about on our last podcast when we were previewing this game. I said you can't win the game and like have a couple fumbles. Like you can't do that because they were averaging, I think, a fumble and a half a game. Our Sam Houston State was averaging about a fumble and a half, 2 fumbles a game, something like that. I was like, they can't have that and win this game. Before they got a first down, they lost 2 fumbles. And they didn't lose the second one technically, but it was the muff punt. It might as well have been lost. It was the same result either way. But it was awful because of the weather conditions at first. And SDSU wasn't able to cash in, but it was kind of a sloppy game at the beginning, but still you could tell that they were competing. It wasn't like self-inflicted mistakes. It was just the weather was terrible. I don't know what kind of field surface and stuff they used, how well that was done, but it made for an interesting first quarter and a half for sure with the weather.
Yeah, no, I do agree, and I'll use the terms that are appropriate for Toyota Stadium. The pitch out there was very, very muddy, very swampy, and something that I was wrong about. I thought that for Sam Houston State to win, it had to be a track meet. And as you saw as the game progressed, I mean, yes, Schmid threw a lot, but they controlled they controlled the ball throughout the game. I mean, South Dakota State had a couple long touchdowns, had some more like multiple 3-and-outs with Gronowski out of the game, as we'll talk about later. But I thought if that this weather with all the weather that was accounted for. I mean, when you think about late season South Dakota State football or late season MVFC football, you think about cold weather, snow, and that just includes the softer teams like North Dakota State, South Dakota, North Dakota. All jokes, they're not soft because they play in a dome. Obviously, they have many titles, but that game was in South Dakota State's wheelhouse. But I got to give credit to Sam Houston for playing South Dakota State's game, ground heavy, short pass heavy, controlling the clock, and just doing that well. Because I mean, I got to admit I was wrong, but I got to ask this question, Jackson. Do you think it's a different game if Gronowski stays in or not?
It might be. Yeah, I don't think that's the biggest what if. I think if they had kept giving the ball to Isaiah Davis, because if SCSU wins that game, we don't get in the first minute of this podcast without mentioning Isaiah Davis. 14 carries, 180 yards, 3 touchdowns. Honestly, they just should have kept feeding him, and they didn't even need Gronowski for it. But it was I think if they do have him, maybe they rely more on the passing game than they did the running game. And I don't know how well that would have gone exactly. I mean, Keaton played his best. Still 11 for 22, barely over 100 yards and an interception. So he did everything he could, and props to him. But maybe it's a different game. I tend to think that maybe it would have gone into a track meet or something like that. And I think Sam Houston State would have kept up with them anyway. So maybe instead of 23-21, it's like, 35-33. But like, I still think that Sam Houston State would have pulled it off. I think they would have found a way.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta kind of push back on that a bit, because the one thing that separates Gronowski from a lot of quarterbacks in the MVFC and what made him a factor throughout the playoffs was his legs. I mean, in the semifinal, he caught that touchdown pass against Delaware,
Especially in the red
and
zone. Granowski
yeah,
in the red zone was excellent at running.
yeah, exactly, the red zone too. And I mean, shoot, I'm forgetting the backup's name. What was the backup's name? You said Keen, I think. Was it Keen or Keaton?
Keaton.
Keaton, right? Keaton. Just watching that game, I mean, he was more of a pocket passer from the looks of it, and he didn't have the element of of mobility that Gronowski brought. I mean, Gronowski had that wild like 4 carry 120-yard game earlier in the season. So I like to think you put all those guys on South Dakota State together running the ball, especially like you said in the red zone, and in weather like that, where they're ahead of the chains too, as we saw, like getting behind the chains was a struggle for them in that game, where you give the ball to Pierre Strong, throwing Isaiah Davis in there, throwing Mark Gronowski too, running the ball, and if not throwing it if they have to. I really think it's a different game. I don't think it's a blowout, but I do think that, it's one score
You
in
think they pull it
favor.
off?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
Southern State would pull it
Okay.
off.
Yeah, that'll definitely go down as a what if. A one little nugget that I found that I thought was interesting is something when I was watching the game, I was like, it seems like Sam Houston State is like really inefficient and then has like a burst. Like it just didn't seem like it was always the most consistent. Like they would have these big chunk plays. With 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and of course a lot of offense happened with 5 minutes left. Um, Up until that point, Eric Schmid was 5 for 9. Four of those five completed passes were for first downs. So when he threw the ball, he was throwing it for a pretty good chunk of change. And yeah, maybe not the most efficient. 5 for 9 isn't what you would think of like a championship level winning quarterback, but he was throwing it for these big chunks of yardage. And that first Sam Houston State touchdown, that was, I don't remember if it was a screen or like a slant or whatever it was. It was not a long throw, not very yard, not many air yards. And the yak was insane. And he just took it to the house or like 1 yard short of it. I don't remember. It was like, I just kind of summarized it. Like, yeah, they have like these explosive plays and then kind of inefficient, 3 yards there, 4 yards there, running, getting sacked, and then like explodes. That seemed to be the trend of the game for their offense.
Jaquez Ezer was an absolute revelation throughout that game. Like, oh my goodness.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. He was,
Like, yeah.
man, what was he? I know he got 2 touchdowns. I think let's see, yeah, 10 receptions. So he caught half the receptions of all of Sam Houston State. Got 108 yards. Yeah, Jaquez Ezer. It was hard to miss him in that game. He did a phenomenal job.
Yeah, I mean, and he almost had that like insane like one-handed
Yeah,
grab too
yeah.
that that was punched out at the end. So I'm not sure who won MVP. Hopefully it was Ezra. Have to look at that
Over
earlier, but or
160
later. But
yards rushing, and the average carry was like at around like 4.5 yards a carry. So they were pretty efficient running the ball. They kind of split it between three different guys. Well, really two. But yeah, Sam Houston State kind of found their just there. And Schmid, he ran a lot. And he had more carries than passes, or almost as many carries as completed passes. But yeah.
yeah, I mean, and that's been Eric Schmidt all year. Like as we've seen, just this tough competitor. So credit to him. And really, I think that's one of the things, like one of the lingering things that we'll remember from this race is like where was Eric Schmid in the voting? But like you said, rather have a ring than a trophy.
He caught back up after getting gypped a little bit and not being included. I think I wrote down, I just want to, for anyone listening, I think I wrote down that stat wrong where he was 5 for 9. Actually, I definitely did. There must have been on a certain down. It must have been like third down where he was 5 for 9 because it was 20 for 37, which obviously he didn't attempt, 26, 28 passes. In the last 5 minutes, but I need to go back and see what down that was. I just wrote it down wrong. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I mean, no worries. But for sure, like definitely a great game. And I think honestly, if I'm being honest, like next year, I think North Dakota State will rebound. They have a solid quarterback from Virginia Tech transferring from there. I forget his name, but they have a solid quarterback from Virginia Tech who fits their system too. If you've watched, I mean, he's gotten play over the years. I'll have to look up his name really quick, but you've seen Virginia Tech play over the years with Hendon Hooker, a very multidimensional quarterback. So they should be back, honestly. And I really feel for South Dakota State because that was their window, I feel. In a pandemic, North Dakota State looking very vulnerable. And then they lose in the
A
final
while before
seconds.
we
It's
see the
heartbreaking.
Jackrabbits contend again. I feel like it's gonna be a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think they'll contend, but I just think that, especially like not just North Dakota State, but what we saw out of North Dakota and then Missouri State too. I don't think you can count out Missouri State especially with Bobby Petrino. As much as Bobby Petrino has been a deplorable character in college football, the man can coach.
Yeah, that he can do. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's it'll be interesting to see next year. I think we go back to NDSU winning this 2 out of 3 times or whatever it was, but we'll see. Hopefully not. It'd be good to have a little diversity in there as far as who wins it every year. But I think we're all just glad that we didn't see Bama, Tom Brady, and NDSU all win their respective championships, because that would have been like, we've seen all of this before. Like, it's not even new. So I think we're all glad for that.
Yeah, and just for reference, the Virginia Tech quarterback transferred to North Dakota State's Quincy Patterson for UACC
Oh, okay.
fans. 50 carries, 241 yards his freshman year. Last year didn't play as much, but ran for 67 yards on 15 carries. So really, like, I mean, fits that system well, the sort of pro style spreadish. So yeah, I mean, honestly, I think you're counting out one contender, Jackson. You're counting out the Crusaders of the Seven Hills of Worcester, the Holy Cross Crusaders with Matt Sluka. Of course I'm joking, but as always, watch out for Holy Cross in the Patriot League. Unbiased.
Oh, yeah. Still a shame that we had to include the Patriot League in the FCS playoffs. Wasted a good spot, but
Ouch, you're killing me, Jackson. Killing me.
Take one day to get someone during this podcast. At least. So.
I will say this, and this might get you very angry, but if there's a rivalry, honestly, I'd take Lafayette Lehigh over any rivalry in the SEC.
Wow, that is a bold statement.
Over Florida, Georgia,
over the Iron Bowl, over wow, that is a bold statement.
All of them.
You got me freezing cold takes.
Oh man. Just saying, you provoked me. You provoked me, Jackson. I had to defend myself.
Gosh. Well, that is something to look into. I'm gonna have to factually disprove that.
The most played rivalry in college football, Jackson. The most played, Lafayette Lehigh.
What about Lafayette Lehigh versus Army Navy?
Okay, nope, sorry. That's where I draw the line. Army Navy, that's America's game, Jackson. You can't touch America's game.
Hey, I mean, you made a very bold statement, so I was just making sure that you weren't too much on that train.
I did delineate, and I did not say over Army Navy or any Ivy League rivalry, because of course the Kings of rivalries are my top 3 rivalries. Army Navy.
You take it over. I mean, if you take it over any SEC rivalry, you have to take it over any Power 5 rivalry.
Oh, of course, right? Of course.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
take it over the other 4 conferences that make up the Power 5.
Well, Power 6, Jackson. I go by Power 6. You got to include the American too. The ghost of the Big East.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we'll include the American in that. So, although are we allowed to keep calling Oregon State the Civil War? Because I know they ended that, but
man, yeah. What is it called?
They just call it Oregon State.
Jeez, I didn't think about that. I kind of forgot about that. I guess not. I don't know. I mean,
I don't know either. It's like I'm just gonna do it out of habit. I'm like, wait, they ended that. So,
But wait, Jackson, we're forgetting one important rivalry: the civil conflict. UCF UConn, the civil conflict.
Yes.
A very
Another
iconic
UCF
rivalry.
One, yeah, the war on I-4.
Yeah, no, that's a UConn UCF one with Bob Diaco, where he created the trophy, where he made UCF UConn's rival, only for UConn to leave the conference 5 years later.
Yeah. And what's Iowa State, Iowa? What is that called?
That's a Cyhawk trophy, I think. Cyhawk trophy.
That's it.
Yeah, if you love 13-10 games.
Rivalries, but that's what happens when we're in late May and have a podcast on football. So
if you like 13-10 games, Jackson, you're a man of culture. Talking about Iowa State. Your love of 13-10 games is admirable.
Yeah. Hey, it's respectable. You just got to put it. It's one of those things where it's like you can't look away if it's like on ABC at night, but stick it on FS1 at noon and I would barely pay attention to it. It's one of those games where it's like, if it's under the lights, not in prime time, like that's awesome. And then when it's not, it's like, take it or leave it.
But big noon kickoff. All the big games are at noon, Jackson.
No. Yeah, it's not ruining college football. I didn't say it's. I voted no on your Instagram story. I'm also saying it's not good. It's not ruining it though.
It's just business. That's all it
Yeah,
is. It's
yeah,
not personal, Oklahoma. It's business.
yeah. I mean, they know they're never going to beat ABC for that primetime slot, so they got to find in CBS at least for the next year. Unfortunately, owns a 3:30 slot. They got to find something else. So might as well take noon. So
Yeah, I mean, it is
yeah, I
business.
can't. We're getting completely off topic. So while we're on here, I'm just gonna mention that I can't wait for this SEC CBS contract to end because Alabama plays on the road at Florida, and the game is at 3:30. I'm like, are you serious? Like that is terrible. And it's on September
18th. Yeah, September
yeah,
18th.
September 18th. I'm like, no one, those students, like, they're not going to stick around in the Florida heat in September for, the entirety of the game. They're going to get their Instagram captions as soon as Florida goes down 21-14 before they come back and win. They're going to leave.
Ooh, bold. Bold. Very bold
But
paychecks.
yeah, I just can't wait for this CBS contract to end. So.
Well, I guess one final thing on CVS before we go on. I am surprised to hear you say that, but I was surprised it wasn't a night game. Like I totally agree with you. The night game is
Because we're not
designated.
named LSU. Florida is not named LSU. So you don't get, oh, well, LSU needs their night games. It's like the spoiled toddler that, well, we have to give them their, goldfish, their cake pops. That's what they need. You're fine though. You're tough.
Yeah, well, they designated the night game to be October 9th, so it looks like it's going to be Bama A&M. Looks like A&M's getting the night game this year.
Are you serious?
Yeah, they designated the game for October 9th, I believe. The night
Bama
game.
A&M. We've seen that story a million times.
Yeah.
It's Johnny Manziel left.
Hey, but it's different. It's Jimbo says it's different, so it's going to be different.
It's not.
And I will say this too. Air Force Army, great that it's on CBS, bad that it's on at 10:30 a.m. local time in Texas at the Rangers ballpark. So
Ooh, that's rough.
yeah,
Oh, it's
it's
at the Rangers ballpark though. That's interesting.
yeah, exactly. Very, very exciting.
I
But
missed that. That's kind of cool.
yeah. I mean,
On
it's great.
is it on not is it Veterans Day? No. When is it?
No, it's just the first weekend of November when the game's usually
Um,
played.
it's near some kind of military holiday, not Memorial Day, obviously.
Yeah,
Like,
near Veterans Day. It's 5 days away from Veterans Day.
okay. I know College Game Day went there one time to the Air Force Academy when it like fell on Veterans Day and there was like nowhere else great to play. But yeah, that'll be cool. That's also I miss it was in the Rangers ballpark. So yeah, but I kind of wish the FCS would keep this spring format. They're not going to for obvious reasons, but it's kind of
Uh,
cool. So
I'm against that, Jackson. I gotta say, I'm
yeah,
against that, man.
yeah,
Oh
but
man,
kind of fun. It was kind of fun. So,
it
but
was fun.
CF will come through for us next year for sure.
FCF and maybe the XFL. Still holding
Yeah.
on to
Oh
hope
yeah.
for the
That's right,
XFL.
the XFL's coming back.
Let's go
Man,
Guardians.
awesome. Thank you, The Rock. So.
Wow, that was a very I guess a big expedition off course
That
for
was
us.
a 20-minute podcast if you were listening for the FCS.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you can just tune out at the end, except come back when we talk about briefly spring football. But
Yeah, exactly.
if you have anything else, Jackson, you have anything else to close before we close the book in the spring season?
I do not. One more thing to mention that's awesome. Senior Bowl and Jim Nagy announcing that they're partnering for the FCS HBCU Combine. Put it down there in Mobile, which is awesome. Jim Nagy has just transformed the Senior Bowl. He's done an awesome job. Spent a long time in the NFL, both as a player and on the professional side, on the front office side. And he's doing some awesome stuff with the Senior Bowl, and they're partnering up, and they're going to be holding it down in Mobile. So it seems like we're going to get some attention there, which will be awesome.
Yeah, he's totally transformed the Senior Bowl, especially with the peanut butter, the Reese's uniforms. Not a
Yes,
fan. Not a fan.
Not a Reese's fan. I will eat a lot of Reese's on the fourth Saturday in January, and that's it.
Not a fan of the uniforms. It's gimmicky. Like dressing the teams up like Reese's cups. Gimmicky. Not a fan.
Hey, yeah. Oh, but you know what? We might actually see it moved this year because the NFL postseason is pushed back 1 week. So
Oh, it's right. I forgot about
yeah,
that.
I cannot wait for the day people are gonna lose their minds when the Super Bowl falls on Valentine's Day. It's gonna be awesome.
Oh
So
gosh.
we'll see which is more important to America. So
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I mean, I know it's more important for me, but I'm just gonna leave it at that. No further comment.
at least for the next year.
Thanks for the next year. Yeah. Maybe sooner. Maybe
Yeah,
a
but
little
put
bit
your just make it clear because it falls on February 13th this year.
Oh my god.
Super Bowl in LA, so it's the day before. So just like if you do have a girlfriend, just make sure by then, hey, it's the day before. I'm telling you, and whenever you do get one, I've already told Izzy. So hey, just it's May. Just letting you know, when Tampa goes back to back, I'm gonna need at least a day to settle back down. So we'll celebrate on the 15th. That'll be fine.
I don't know about Tampa going back to back. It's so hard to go back to back, Jackson.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember who's the last quarterback to win back-to-back Super Bowls. I can't remember.
Okay, yeah, you know darn well who it is. We both know darn well who it is.
Yeah.
It was a different NFL. It was a different NFL back then. We both know that.
Yeah. I'll see.
But before I get all hot and bothered about Tom Brady, about Tom Terrific, I think this might be a good time to sign off if Jackson has anything else to say. Or
I do not. I'm looking forward to. We're gonna have to, even though it's gonna be in the middle of everything else, we're gonna have to cover maybe not as heavily, but at least somewhat the Walter Payton Buchanan next year for sure. We're gonna have to talk some about it at least because that was awesome covering it. I know for me, I've never been a huge FCS guy. I learned a lot this past year. It was awesome watching it, keeping track of it, learning a lot from you and Google about FCS and all that. So that was awesome. I'm looking forward to it next year for sure. So,
yeah, I mean, totally agree, Jackson. Learned a lot from you as well, especially your draft analysis of the players. There are a few men I know that are as dedicated to the draft as you. Really appreciated it.
What, no one watches all 7 rounds and keeps track of UDFA signings afterwards?
Not that I know of. But I will say, if we cover the Walter Payton and Buck Buchanan candidates, my list will be chock full of Ivy League players and a few Patriot League guys. So we might have to stop doing it due to bias on my part.
We'll see next year. We'll see. So it'll be fun. And can ESPN at ESPN CFB on Instagram, can we post more about non-Jackson State teams than Jackson State next year? It seemed like every post this spring was either about Trevor Lawrence or Dion. It was always one of the two. I don't know why, but they need to diversify. Would have been good for them, honestly, if they had done something else with it. No one wants to watch baseball.
Yeah. I mean, I'm probably gonna watch some baseball tonight, but that this isn't a baseball podcast. But well, I guess until next time, we'll be picking our faces over the summer with a variety of top things that we have yet to decide on or even really talk about what we're gonna release. But until next time, peace, love, and soul, everyone.